Welcome back to BatFacts. It's been said that Batman's best antagonists hold up a mirror, presenting a challenge to one of Batman's strengths, be it detective skill, willpower, or brute strength. If there's a single combat tactician to rival Batman in the DCU, it's Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke. The Terminator, no, not that Terminator, this The Terminator was created by Marv Wolfman and George Perez and first appeared in December 1980's New Teen Titans #2, 4 years prior to James Cameron's film.
Okay, because I came out, way before he did.
Introduced as a tenacious mercenary with a very strict personal code, Slade Wilson dual wields firearms and swords, rocks a very, very popular orange and blue color scheme, and one half of his mask is completely featureless. The Terminator was originally planned as a one-and-done character, though Slade proved popular and would return, more commonly using the name Deathstroke, and would become an arch-enemy to the Teen Titans. Deathstroke really came into his own during the now legendary Judas Contract storyline, where it's revealed that Slade was able to infiltrate the Titans with an undercover informant from within the team. Using the intel gained, he was able to learn their various weaknesses and systematically take down the entire team, demonstrating his cunning strategy, as well as a lack of limitations on what he's willing to do to succeed. With his infamy forever cemented, Deathstroke began to branch out all over the DCU, accepting contracts from anyone who could pay. These adventures spanned 3 separate solo series and earned him a prominent place among Batman's rogues gallery. Both characters are prime examples of what TV tropes calls badass normal, meaning, in a world with supernatural dealings or superpowers, this character is the one who is able to keep being useful through intellect, martial arts abilities, general ruthlessness, or just being crazy prepared. Technically, Slade falls into the enhanced badass normal category, but even so, Deathstroke's enhancements have always been...
Do you guys have the phrase hat on a hat?
So what happened when Deathstroke and Batman first met? Well, Deathstroke kind of kicked Batman's ass. Their first meeting, the City of Assassins storyline in the pages of Deathstroke numbers 6 through 9, Deathstroke actually bests the Dark Knight in a brutal 6-page beatdown when Batman tries to protect a witness that Deathstroke has been paid to eliminate. This initial victory is one of Deathstroke's career highlights, so where does one go from there? How about the entire Justice League? In 2001's Identity Crisis miniseries by Brad Meltzer, Deathstroke is employed as a bodyguard for then Public Enemy #1, Dr. Light. The Terminator puts on a clinic, systematically dismantling the entire Justice League, silencing Zatanna, grounding Hawkman, impaling an in-motion Flash, and almost willing himself into being a Green Lantern. Granted, this Justice League featured none of DC's Holy Trinity, and he was eventually stopped by Green Arrow. It was still an impressive showing to say the least, and a reminder of Slade's power. Luckily for the Caped Crusader, their score would not remain unsettled, and he would be given many opportunities to avenge his early loss to Deathstroke. They would next meet in Detective number 708 to 710. This was the late 90s and Slade was sporting a blue and black getup and was easily dispatched by the Dark Knight in a reversal of their initial meeting. From there, it was diminishing returns for Deathstroke. 2010 saw Grant Morrison write a mind-controlled Damian Wayne doing Deathstroke's bidding in an effort to kill then Batman Dick Grayson. And 2011's Batman Superman annual saw Deathstroke defeated by a single bat boot to the face after teaming up with a very Deadpool-esque character. Things started to pick back up in 2012 with a brief encounter where Deathstroke successfully pulls Batman from his plane, but does little more than deliver a stern warning. Slade would finally break his losing streak in his long-awaited 16-page battle royale with Batman in the 5th issue of the 3rd Deathstroke solo series. A wise man, or maybe it was Harvey Dent, once said,
"You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain."
But in DC Comics history, with everyone from Lex Luthor to Sinestro to the Joker doing temporary face turns, it seems almost the exact opposite is true. You either die a villain, or live long enough to see yourself become a hero. Despite being a member of the secret society of supervillains, Deathstroke is not beyond the occasional bout of hero work. In fact, early in his career he was recruited by none other than Superman to help him build a team to take on an otherworldly threat in the Panic in the Sky storyline. He also teamed with the Justice League in 2 separate 2018 events by Scott Snyder, Dark Knight's Metal and No Justice. Indeed, it's hard to pin Deathstroke down. Depending on the story, he wavers between villain, anti-villain, and anti-hero. Co-creator Marv Wolfman said he never thought of Deathstroke as a villain or a bad guy, but more of a victim of circumstance. Current writer and seminal Deadpool writer Christopher Priest thinks that Deathstroke is a villain, and also kind of an asshole. He deliberately does skeevy things in his quest to exact revenge from his enemies. So just who is Slade Wilson? Where did he come from? How did he lose his eye? A veteran of multiple wars and a soldier since he was 16, Slade Wilson's talents made him an ideal candidate for government experimentation, where his skills as a high-ranking soldier and combat tactician were heightened even further. It's said that Slade now has access to 90% of his brain, compared to the average person's 10%.
I think we only use 10% of our hearts.
The experiments also slowed his aging. After falling in love with Adeline King, his military superior, the two settled down to raise a family, and Slade pulled sort of a Mr. Incredible double life thing. When the criminal Jackal kidnapped Slade's son Joseph, Slade had to choose between his code as an assassin and his family. Refusing to divulge information at any cost, young Joseph paid the cost for Slade's rule of silence, losing his vocal cords in the process. Joseph would ultimately be saved by Slade, but the damage was done. When Adeline found out Slade had chosen his code over the well-being of their son, this threw her into a rage where she attempted to murder Slade and permanently damaged his right eye, forever putting him among the Eye Patch Club. Or his wife and son were killed, and with nothing left to lose, Slade had his eye shot out rescuing his old partner Wintergreen from North Korean soldiers. And maybe his son Grant might have been there. Either way. He also may or may not have been involved with Team 7, the experimental super soldier project and bedrock of Jim Lee's Wildstorm universe that was incorporated into the DCU in 2011. As you may have guessed, like many characters in the DC universe, elements of Deathstroke's history have been lost to retcons and reboots. But what's consistent is, he's an elite army vet and mercenary who's gained enhanced abilities after government experimentation and possesses peak-level warrior skills, wielding both blades and guns with maximum efficiency, despite only having use of his left eye. Okay, so his name has come up a few times already at this point, but it's kind of hard to talk about the history of Deathstroke without talking about the red and black elephant in the room, his similarity to Marvel's Deadpool. I mentioned Rob Liefeld last episode, and for the uninitiated, Rob Liefeld is essentially the Michael Bay of comics. His work is larger than life stylistically, but crumbles under any close examination. He's inarguably a comics icon, but also an extremely easy target. He's also most well known these days for being the co-creator of Deadpool, aka Wade Wilson. The story goes, late into their run at New Mutants, prior to the launch of their biggest book, X-Force, Liefeld and writer Fabian Nicieza needed a throwaway character to introduce alongside two other new characters. Liefeld had just taken over plotting the book, as well as penciling. A Teen Titans fan, he drew a character that looked a lot like Deathstroke, only with both eyes intact. Nicieza remarked that Liefeld should call his new character Wade Wilson, and whether it was an inside joke or an intentional trolling, the name stuck, and Deadpool was born. But lately, now that Deadpool has been built into a hugely profitable IP, Liefeld isn't as forthcoming with citing Deathstroke as a primary influence. At several convention panels, Liefeld claims Deadpool's design is rooted in, of all places, Todd McFarlane's aforementioned avoidance of drawing faces, which was pointed out in my look at the Batman Spawn crossover in BatFacts Episode 5. Evidently McFarlane, then the artist on Spider-Man, used to tease Liefeld about all the faces he had to draw, compared to McFarlane who could draw Spider-Man's familiar, consistent mask and call it a day. To be fair, beyond their obvious aesthetic similarities, under the mask the two characters are very different. Where Deathstroke is a disciplined metahuman soldier, Deadpool is an insane metatextual zombie.
Nah, I'm pretty sure you're Deadpool.
So, if in 1996, like most people, you were tuned into Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, you'd have seen Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher's endless charisma, but also the television debut of a villain named
Deathstroke.
He was portrayed by Antonio Sabato Jr., he looked like this, and his powers were basically Magneto from the X-Men. They used the name
Deathstroke,
but the character had zero connection to Slade Wilson of the comics, but that was 90s superhero television for you. After a few acclaimed animated appearances voiced by Ron Perlman on Teen Titans and its follow-up, 2010's Young Justice, Slade made his live-action silver screen debut in CW's Arrow in 2012. On the show, Deathstroke is played by Manu Bennett, and the character's origin is much more intertwined with Green Arrow, taking on a mentor/nemesis role over the course of several seasons. This summer, Lego Batman alum Will Arnett voices Slade in Teen Titans Go to the Movies, acting as the generally lighthearted team's first major threat. Perhaps no other format besides comics has complemented Deathstroke more than video games, making his first appearance in 2008's Mortal Kombat vs. the DC Universe. 2013 was a banner year, appearing in Injustice: Gods Among Us, and more prominently as the playable DLC character for the awkward middle child of the Arkham series, 2013's Arkham Origins. The ad campaign for Arkham Origins was comprised of animated trailers, the longest being this gorgeously rendered fight sequence between Deathstroke and the Dark Knight. I don't know about you, But in a world where Sony is releasing a CGI Spider-Man movie, I would love to see something like this made into a full-length film. By the way, these trailers were directed by filmmaker Tim Miller, who you might know was responsible for the initial leaked test footage and the resulting feature-length film, Deadpool, in 2016. And Miller's next project? A reboot of James Cameron's The Terminator. The connections never cease. Deathstroke also appeared in Lego form for the Lego Batman game series, as well as a surprise late-campaign reprisal in Rocksteady's finale to the Arkham series, 2015's Arkham Knight. Deathstroke is played by Joe Manganiello in the DCEU, and was reportedly offered the role based upon fan art created by artist Boss Logic. Manganiello made his Deathstroke debut via Ben Affleck's Instagram on August 29, 2016, when the then Batman director leaked test footage of Manganiello in costume. This continued in the post-credit sequence of 2017's Justice League, where Slade meets up with Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. Eagle-eyed viewers noted the scene being storyboarded in this promo picture of Zack Snyder, confirming the scene as his contribution and not cleanup director Joss Whedon's. Deathstroke was set to be a villain in Affleck and Jeff Johns' The Batman script, and once cast, Manganiello reportedly dove deep into the character and researched heavily for the role, posting these photos of his research, but also studying martial arts, sword techniques, and even writing his own backstory. After Affleck exited directing the project, he and John's script was no longer being used by new director Matt Reeves, leaving Slade Wilson's involvement in limbo. However, a Deathstroke solo film is apparently in the works from the Raid director Gareth Evans, with a script based on Manganiello's notes. Considering Manganiello's enthusiasm for Deathstroke, as well as the character's versatility, it wouldn't be a huge surprise to see him show up in any of these upcoming DCEU features. I say,
I wish you luck, Joe Manganiello.
That's going to be it for our look at Deathstroke. For more on Deathstroke, I've left some recommended reading and links in the show notes. If you like the show, please share with a friend who likes Batman, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and as always, support your local comic shop. Check out our next episode where we'll look at Batman and killing. Some bat time, same bat channel. See you next time.